I just started spit giggling. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Mickey, thank you very much for your time. Craig and David Smoke, Paul Catalina as well. So, Mickey, now's the time, right? All the 1,000 mock drafts begin. Do you do anything like that yourself, or do you just look at prospects based on need?
You know what? I sort of look at prospects based on need. Mock drafts. What you end up doing with mock drafts is you look at basically what a team needs, and then you say, okay, well, let me give them that thing. Well, you may not get the need right? So to me, just go ahead and look at prospects for the Cowboys. You kind of know what they need, and try to get a feel for how the thing's going to play out, like what's going to be available. But I think the big thing is to not get stuck on need as much as, well, hey, watch these guys. Use your eyes, right? And that's sort of, how I came up with Micah Parsons last year. I saw what this guy can do, and it's like, yeah, the Cowboys need a guy like that. So that's kind of my approach when we get into draft talk this early in mid-February.
Mickey, have you watched much of Tyler Linderbaum yet?
I don't believe I have.
Well, he's a center.
I need to?
Look, he's a center from Iowa. I think that, I'll give you my assessment of guys. If they play for teams that have good positions at this all the time, like Iowa and Wisconsin always have good offensive linemen, and it's a position of need, hey, go get it. And center seems to be one that would maybe fall to them right there at 24.
Yeah, and so what if I'm using that first round pick on that? What am I passing up? What's more valuable? And again, at this point in February, you don't know your needs are because you haven't got into free agency. So that's why I always look at it this early. It's probably too early. Who knows what happens in free agency? You might find a deal in free agency and find a center. And then it's like, okay, well, what else do I need? I saw some of these mock drafts already giving the Cowboys a guard. I don't want a guard. If he's a tackle that can play guard, then I'm okay. But from a kind of financial standpoint, I already got a first round pick on a guard. I don't need to keep spending first round picks on guards. If it's a guard, he better be able to play tackle. So I think you have to look at your priorities of where you want to not spend money, but spend your draft capital. Like what positions are more important in the scheme of things.
Mickey, what's the biggest offseason question in your mind? I know there's a lot of different guys with contracts coming up. There's the draft, there's all that. But what's the toughest question or maybe the most difficult question to answer in front of them right now, you think?
Well, I think it is what was the cause of the offensive kind of brownout down the stretch? And to me, it was the offensive line. So I think you have to look at what do I need to do to make sure that offensive line plays better. And not just protecting Dak Prescott, but be able to run the football. And do I have to look at my schemes on how I was scheming up some of the running game that got stopped? But I think that's the biggest thing that they need to solve going forward. And they got to take a self-scout, look at themselves, and come up with some hard answers on why that part of their game failed. Were they getting old on the offensive line? Did they just guys not perform to the level they needed to? Do they need to change some of their schemes? I think that's something that's got to be answered.
Mickey, you mentioned the offensive line and not being able to run in the running game. They were getting gaping. It seemed like they were averaging 6 or 7 yards a carry. And I know Pollard more explosive, but even early on, was it what happened? What happened to the fact they could not run the ball? And a follow-up question to that is Schultz seems to be a phenomenal pass-catching tight end, but he's not the best blocker, and he could be getting lots of money in free agency. What would be better for what they have, a guy who's a weapon as a receiver or someone who can be an anchor on the offensive line?
Well, they have to make a decision on Blake Jarwin. Is he going to be healthy next year and in better physical situation than he was this year coming back from his ACL? If that's the case, and he is, then you got a pass-catching tight end. What you'll have to do is that second guy out of their tight ends blocking. Hey, great, we're going 2 tight ends. That means we're going heavy, right? Well, if the 2 tight ends aren't very good blockers, what are you doing, right? And then they started changing that up, using tackles to be that second tight end. You saw Terrence Steele go out there. You saw a guard, Connor McGovern, go out there. So I think, and where do you find a blocking tight end? They don't have them in college anymore, do they? They're non-existent. You got to be able to get down the field in college if you're even going to play tight end, and they don't want you to block. So that's one of the things I think that they also probably need to address, and I think it'll be interesting to see. What's the open market? What's the free agent market? What's Schultz going to be worth? And can they even come close to, matching it for a guy that caught 78 passes? Remember, 78 catches last year, was second on the team by 1. CeeDee Lamb had 79, so he was pretty integral part of that passing game. And that's one of the headaches they're going to have to address. They've got so many guys in significant spots on this team that are going to become unrestricted free agents. Can you get any of these guys re-signed if you want them back? And what's it going to cost?
Mickey, do you expect to see them use the franchise tag on any of the free agents this year?
I looked at the franchise tag prices, and I was trying to find my list. And in most cases, on a 1-year deal, it was pretty pricey, and it was almost like you had to sit there and say, okay, let me see what market value is for that guy at that position before I pay that much money. I don't think you're going to use a franchise tag on a safety. Probably not on a linebacker like Van Der Esch. And then the tight end franchise tag is pretty pricey. It's in the double digits, right? So I'd be surprised if they would do that, because the cost would at this point would eat up whatever salary cap they open up by restructuring some contracts that they're going to have to do anyway, first and foremost, with Dak Prescott.
All right, Mickey, we're going to have a former employee of the Washington football team, now the Commanders, who worked with them and has been a part of some of the investigation into Daniel Snyder and the coach and the organization. And then there was the story yesterday from ESPN about the Cowboys and a guy that we all know. And we mentioned Rich Dalrymple on the day that he retired. What kind of smoke or what has been the reaction from those like you who covered the team, even though this is kind of an off season based on Daly being at Frisco?
Yeah, this has been kind of new, David. So I don't know that anybody's got a good hold on exactly what took place, right? And the only thing that I saw today that caught my eye, and I heard it just in passing, and I don't know where the story came from, and it was, will the NFL look into this? And what I heard, and it was obviously summarizing a report, was that the NFL supposedly is good with the Cowboys investigated and turned over to them. So we'll see where this thing goes. It's pretty new. It's pretty raw. So it's really hard to react one way or another to it.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of a non-answer. And if I was in a court of law, the judge would have said, that's a non-answer. Answer the question, right?
Yeah, they would bring out those tweezers and put your finger in the middle of one of them, or one of those things that clips the bottom of any flowers, and they would say, okay, answer it now. Yeah,
Right.
and again, that's kind of what the NFL did with Washington, and that didn't help any because it almost seemed like it got worse, and now they're trying to get more involved. So we'll see what happens with that story as we go. Can the Cowboys win next year if they did gut some of the higher priced guys in Zeke Elliott or DeMarcus Lawrence? Would it help them or hurt them?
I think it would hurt them because you got to replace them, right?
Sure.
And what do you replace them with? Because they don't have anybody on the team that you can replace them with. Plus, you end up with a bunch of dead money in the salary cap. So I don't know where it's beneficial to do that with either one of them. I think everybody looks at DeMarcus Lawrence's base salary. It's $19 million, right? Well, go ahead and cut him before June 1, and the dead money is $19 million. So it's a push, and you don't have the only starting defensive end in your top three that you would start. Randy Gregory's an unrestricted free agent. The third guy, Dorrance Armstrong's an unrestricted free agent. So somebody's got to play defensive end. That's my answer to the same thing with this notion that, if you cut Amari Cooper, then he's got a $20 million base salary, dead money $6 million. You're going to end up with basically $16 million free, right? Okay, who's playing wide receiver for you? I got CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup's an unrestricted free agent. Cedric Wilson, an unrestricted free agent. Noah Brown, an unrestricted free agent. And even old Malik Turner, who played sparingly, unrestricted free agent. So who's playing wide receiver for me if I can't get Michael Gallup re-signed? And who knows where that one's going to go coming off the ACL surgery that he's just had. But you cut Amari Cooper, and I got one wide receiver that I know right now. And when it comes to Cooper's contract, the fifth day of the league year, it's guaranteed. So if I guarantee somebody a $20 million, base salary, I can't cut them the sixth day of the league year. And I really won't know what I can get in free agency by then, maybe. And I also don't know what I can get in the draft. So to me, it's a leap of faith to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So what they have to do is restructure some of these big contracts that have several years left on them. Now, Cooper's only got, if I remember, this year and maybe one or two more. So a restructure bonus on him wouldn't pay off because you don't have as many years to prorate the signing bonus you give them. But for example, you saw what they did last year with Dak Prescott's first year of his new contract. They restructured the base salary, and they put a voidable year in 2025, which allowed them to go forward and spread out the signing bonus, the restructure bonus they gave over 5 years. Well, they also put a voidable year in 2026, meaning it's just a phony year, right? And it voids for being on the roster in 2022. Well, he's got a $20 million base salary. So you could ostensibly take that down to $2 million, pay him $18 million up front, and divide the $18 million by 5, and it would cost $3 million a year over those next 5 years. And that's what they're going to do. I don't know that I've got the numbers right, but that's just an example of what they will do with his contract, because they already knew that they were going to have to do that with his contract, so they gave him a phony voidable year. You can't just cut guys and you say you save money, but you end up with dead money because you got to still account for the signing bonus that these guys have already had. Same thing with La'el Collins. He's got a bunch of years left on his deal. They could probably do that with his contract, if indeed they think he's worth keeping, because he didn't have a very good season, in my opinion, and was one of the reasons why they struggled on the offensive line once he got back from his suspension. So again, they're going to have to figure out what contracts they can restructure to create enough cap space to go forward.
Mickey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Always, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, with us on Thursdays around 4:30, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Coming up next.